worse, they used him to help recruit other young men and women into the Royal Australian Navy. For Dave Finney, the Defence Force was more than a job, it was a way of life. But years on, his proud mum says the Navy deserted her son. This is her story.
It's the first time she has come here since the funeral. A mother's grief and a nation's shame.
It's just such a tragedy.
No, we can't continue like this.
For a hero who was friends to everyone.
He was hilarious. He always had people laughing. He was the life of the party. He was a larrikin. He was an all-round great guy.
And the good-looking poster boy of the Royal Australian Navy.
My name's Dave Finney and I'm a Petty Officer Marine Technician.
Proud to serve his country.
It's a great job and it's not monotonous and you learn great skills.
He was good looking, he was everything for a mother to be proud of, and proud I was.
But now, all that Mum Julianne has left are the medals, commendations and awards for her son's bravery to our nation.
He was involved in putting out an engine room fire. It was quite horrific actually, and he told me about it at the time. Like he was a hero in the Navy, he was a hero in real life, and he was a hero to me.
I've travelled so far with the Navy, I can't even count the countries anymore.
David saw the best of the world and the very worst.
He was in Timor and he was in Iraq, and he was part of boats that boarded refugees, and he did speak about that. He said that he'd grown up and in a safe environment and wasn't ready for seeing the worst of humanity the way he saw it. In the end, it was part of his demons.
Wars and refugee deaths at sea took their toll on a soft soul.
And he became even more empathetic as time went on.
Post-traumatic stress soon set in on the sailor who just loved to keep our ships afloat.
The most exciting aspect of my job is being in charge of all of this machinery. So I've got a diploma in engineering, I've got a certificate 4 in electrical engineering.
For 20 years, he battled for us. And for half that time, he battled with himself, talking on a podcast about his 2 suicide attempts in an effort to help others.
I had a few problems with mental health issues, and I was diagnosed with PTSD and spent a few months in hospital last year.
So when David felt himself spiralling out of control again, he wrote to the Australian Defence Force for help.
The doctor's report said that he was unfit for work. There were medical reports that said he shouldn't put on the uniform anymore because it triggers him into a breakdown type situation. And the ADF made him put on his uniform again. It was like they got all these medical reports and stamped them with the word filed. There was no, it's like there was no red flags.
Eventually, he was medically discharged and handed over to the Department of Veteran Affairs, where again, he asked for help.
Absolutely, he needed a psychiatrist and he knew he needed one desperately.
That was October last year. They came back and told him
they currently have a waiting list until April or May of 2019.
A 6-month wait before he could see a psychiatrist?
Yes, and that is out of the state that he lives in.
The weeks ticked on, and Julianne says her son kept ringing the department.
He had tried desperately to get help for 8 weeks, and nobody was listening to him. Nobody was trying to understand what was going on.
Like many who suffer from post-traumatic stress, David did so silently.
I'm devastated that I didn't know this. You know, his friends, his family would have come up with the money to see a psychiatrist. The DVA, look, they did nothing.
3 months after David Finney called the department for help, a policeman knocked on Julianne's door.
He told me that my son had passed away, and I can't tell you the timing, but he asked me for someone that he could call, and I said I have no one, which was not the truth. I just couldn't think who we could ring and give this news to. Who can take this news? I knew that my life had now changed forever, that I was now that mother who had lost a child. Who wants to be that mother? I don't want to be that mother.
Petty Officer David Finney took his life on February 1st after serving his country for 2 decades. He was just 38.
Do you think they failed in their duty of care?
Absolutely, they failed in their duty of care. They have all the information there to save my son. They had it all right in front of them.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
I love my son.
Julianne wanted to bury David in his uniform,
It wasn't offered to me.
so she had to buy it, and the Navy ensign that was presented to her at his funeral.
The one thing they did for me was they presented me with an Australian flag. I didn't ask for that. And they couldn't even get the date right on that. That's how much respect they gave to him. That 3rd of February means nothing to anyone.
He passed on the 1st of February.
That's correct.
An Australian Special Forces soldier has died overnight.
But David Finney
Believed to be a non-combat related incident.
is not alone. The suicide rate of our service personnel and veterans is distressing.
Yeah, it's one a week. It's one a week. And I'd like you to tell me another employer besides the ADF who can lose so many of their employees and just wipe their hands.
While another mother mourns a child who kept us all free and safe.
We should be ashamed that we're allowing this to happen. We should be ashamed.
There's so many people that we talk to that say they're continuing to fight their wars years after they come back from those overseas battlefields.
Matt Jones from the Veteran Support Service Soldier On says mental health in our military should be treated as an injury.
And I'd say that organisations like Soldier On need to work more closely together with the Department of Veterans Affairs to ensure that the right services and support measures are wrapped around veterans to ensure that no one slips through the cracks.
There are still massive problems within the Department of Veterans Affairs. As a matter of fact, I could just about call it now, it's worse than ever.
Jackie Lambie knows what she's talking about. The soon-to-be appointed Senator for Tasmania was injured while a member of the Australian Army.
The system didn't work in 2009 when I had a psychologist and a psychiatrist say she needs help, she needs to be put in a health clinic and she needs that now. That was never done, and 12 months later I walked out in front of a car. So I'm just one of those many statistics. I'm very lucky to be alive, many are not.
She's now an advocate for veterans and pushed for 2 Senate inquiries into why there have been so many suicides.
Those recommendations have not been put in place. They're inactive. I just don't believe we'll have any other choice but to call for a royal commission.
These men and women that have passed away through suicide because of the service they've given this country need a voice, and they can only get that voice through a royal commission.
So a devastated mother is doing just that, starting a petition for us all to sign in the hope that government will hear her voice on behalf of others.
I want to give a voice to the hundreds of veterans that have passed away from suicide.
And she's not alone.
And there are too many people that I know that have taken their own life. And it's just such a waste of the best that Australian society can produce.
And I will continue to fight until the day I'm gone for veterans that have served this country.
They say that burying a child is your worst nightmare, except I don't get to wake up.
And sadly, there'll be another family doing this next week.
One a week. One a week. It's really not fair. It's really not fair.
And Brady Halls joins me now. Brady, what have the relevant government departments or the minister had to say about this?
Yeah, look, the Defence Force incredibly didn't want to put out a statement, didn't want anybody to talk to us about it. The Department of Veteran Affairs wouldn't put anybody up, but they did put up a statement. It said that they are spending $200 million annually on supporting the mental health of veterans and their families. Julianne said to me this afternoon that money may be there, but why wasn't it available for her son? She told me whatever they're spending it on, it's not working. It's not going to those who need it most. When we contacted the newly reappointed Minister for Veteran Affairs, Darren Chester, he acknowledged there's more work to be done. And in coming weeks, he will be holding a Veteran Affairs Health Summit to discuss the crisis involving our service personnel. That statement and the one from the Department of Veteran Affairs are on our website. You'll also find a link to sign Julianne's petition calling for a Royal Commission, and Layla, it's up to 150,000 signatures.
Okay, thank you very much, Brady. And a reminder, if you or someone you know needs help, there is support available. Open Arms provides 24/7 counselling for current and ex-serving ADF personnel and their families. You can go to the website or call the number on your screen. And for anyone else who is in need of help, please contact Lifeline on 131114. That's 13 11 14.